This conference will now be recorded.
Good. We're good to start the workshop. Okay. Call it to order, but. Okay. Ready to call your work session.
Roll call. Councilor Corn. Councilor Perry.
Present.
Councilor Foster.
Present.
Councilor Arnold.
Present.
Councilor Humphrey.
Present.
Councilor Oropesa.
Here.
Councilor Halverson. Present. Councilor Best.
Here.
Councilor Sanchez.
Sanchez.
Moore. Mayor, you have a forum.
Thank you. Okay. We have the agenda okay with everybody? Anybody have any objections to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda workshop agenda as presented. Second.
It's not an official meeting. I don't know if we need to.
Still like to have minutes and stuff.
No,
So
I understand that. We need to have a pledge and. We haven't normally.
not usually.
Okay, well, I
It's on the
didn't think we did,
list.
but that was- So if we want to. Okay, so. Okay, well then. Okay. Mr. Newton, you want to start? Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mayor, city councilors.
We have minutes to approve.
Okay. In the last city council
We're
meeting?
not approving minutes from last council.
There is no voting. There is no voting for this one. So there won't be the ability to vote. So the minutes will have to come on the 8th of September. So, okay. All right, Mr. Mayor, City Council, welcome to actually our first workshop together. We've placed 2 items on the agenda to talk about. I've got presentations on both of them. The first one is an update on the smart meters and where we're at with all the installation of the smart meters. We're going to talk about utility billing a little bit. We're going to talk about all of that, bring you up to date on that. And then the second item is to talk about what cost recovery is and the 70/30, how it came to be, what it means, and we'll try to answer your questions, try to help you with that. So I'm going to jump right on in there. You do have essentially a slideshow for each one of you with where you can put any notes, anything you want to put on them, along with the slides. And so put that together for that purpose. And then I've got the room with individuals that can help with some of those tough questions that you may ask, whether it be finance, whether it be utilities and such. So we're going to walk through this, and some of you have seen some of this presentation, and we just kind of brought it up to date with where we're at right now. So we're going to talk about the background of the utility system, and talk about our common complaints and concerns, understanding the time frame to address those certain complaints and concerns, and then the improvements to the outreach. That's what we're going to hopefully run through with that. And I wanted to start this with a little bit of talk on the utility rate background. But we have not actually added to the water and sewer rates outside of the city ordinance since 2013. What we have within our ordinance, we have built into it a CPI adjustment every year. And so we've just been doing the CPI adjustments as they come up every year. But we have not ever taken a formal action of the city council to raise rates or lower rates, do anything with the rates outside of that CPI. Currently, the CPI adjustments are done every January, and our water is currently at $18.20 for the base. That includes 3,000 gallons, and that's our average customer, 3,000 gallons. So their bill will normally be $18.20. And then for every 1,000 gallons above the 3,000, it's $2.24 per 1,000 gallons on the water side. You go over on the sewer side, we have a $10.99 base rate, and then it's $1.65 per 1,000 gallons on that. So the base rate covers essentially the utility lines themselves, and then any of the flow goes in there. It's based upon the water meter rate. And then 1,000 gallons, we charge $1.65 per 1,000 on the wastewater side.
Now that is only for the months of December, January, and February?
That is, we have the summer rates that we do the adjustment for. And what's the best way to explain that, Janie?
Those are winter quarter. So it is the consumption that is used in December, January, and February gets averaged. And that's what the sewer rate is for the rest of the year.
For the other 9 months?
Yes.
So a lot of people are on one meter on their house, and so they may be irrigating their lawn, their yard and everything. So we utilize the winter numbers because normally people will not be watering their yard at that time. And so that's the number that we carry through the summer months so that they can have that credit for, because if the water goes on the grass, it doesn't go down the sewer. And so that's that balance within that system of how we go. This is just another format of how to lay that out there. I wanted to show this as we put it together because it shows how the 3,000 base does, every 1,000 gallons over. And then we added the household trash and then the taxes on there. So the average customer in Roswell sees a bill of $83.57. And if you're above that, you're generally an above average customer. So thank you for that. I know mine is higher than that. So, but this is all based upon the 3/4 inch meter as well too. And we have 3/4, we have 1 inch, we have 1.5 inches, we have 2 inch, we have 4 inch, we have 6 inch, 8 inch, and I don't think there's anything bigger than an 8. Do we have anything? Okay. All right. So, and so this is how that bill looks. And this is we always look at the average customer number because that gets utilized for when we're borrowing money for the utilities as well too, to make sure that our numbers are accurate for the borrowing as well too. Federal money, if your rates are not high enough, you can't borrow federal money. And so you have to take care of your utility first in order to get to that. All right, we put this slide out there because there's always that confusion about where and when the city's responsibility happens there. So we are, for all purposes, for residential, we're responsible to the meter itself. And we take responsibility of the meter, but then everything that comes off of that is considered a lateral and it runs to the house. That is all the homeowner's responsibility. The sewer main, it goes from the tap. So the challenge we have, and we're actually helping them as well too in the utilities, because if the sewer's on the other side of the street and the lateral goes all the way across, we've went ahead and taken on that responsibility of the stuff in the street as well too, because we don't want anybody digging up our streets or tearing up our streets. And so we want to be the ones to do that. And so we are helping with that as well too. But that's essentially the ownership and the responsibility of where we stop and start. We ran into one, and the mayor was involved in that one as well too. We ran into a business that had a long lateral line on their property. So this works for residential, not necessarily for all the commercials out there. We have 2 or 3 of them out there that if they have a long lateral to their building, they're responsible from the property line to that whole lateral, then the meter, and then the lateral on top on the other side of that. But there's not that many of them according to what water utility says. So, all right. So when you open up the meter pit, this is our primary thing. This is our water meter. It's a digital flow. So the old meters, when they changed over to the smart meters, they were essentially had a spin dial on there, and the water would turn the dial, and kind of like a water wheel. And so over time, that those parts will wear out and they will slow down. This is actually a digital system, and so it has a signal that bounces off the water. And so there's no parts to wear out on that other than the signal giving out. Probably would be the only way that happens. But it bounces off that, and that's how it triggers the flow through there. It is a digital display. We have the ability to radio read. Most of it is with the CGRs, and we have them located on towers out in the city. I'll show you that in a little bit. These things also have display info codes for those of you that wish to open up your pit and look in there. It'll tell you, it'll show little signs of flow, leak, burst, dry, reverse flow, and tampering. All that happens within there. It does keep a data log of the info codes. That's the good thing about these digital meters. The ultrasonic measurement, no moving mechanical parts, and then it does have a low flow start of 0.018 gallons per minute. So these are the meters that we ended up replacing into the system. On top of that, and this was talked about, I believe, the last finance committee meeting where we were talking about set valves. This is one of the pieces that we hate kind of within our system. These set valves are actually designed to be able to turn on and off the system. But what we've discovered is that our hard water that we have here, because this set valve will actually exercise itself. It'll turn itself on and off occasionally to work, but because our water is so hard, it seizes up. So it may not open completely up or it may not close completely up when it's exercising. And that's where we've been having a lot of problems with these set valves. They are under warranty right now. So right now we have been working on just working on replacement of the warranty items. We're not buying any new ones right now. The problem is that we have a 2-year backlog on these things. We've not received any for the last 2 years, I believe. And so as we move away from the warranty of the system, this will be a unit that we quit utilizing because it has not worked, and because of the condition of our water, it won't do what we really wanted it to do, and that was to be able to turn on and off digitally.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So on a residential where it is stuck closed or stuck open or whatever, and we don't have replacements coming in, what are we doing with those situations right now? Is there a manual way?
The crews actually go out there and they do a very technical work on it, and they essentially break it so it never closes again. When it sticks and it's not working right, it has to be replaced. Rather than to pull it out and not have anything to put back in it, they essentially take the cover off and they break it so that it cannot close.
Okay.
And then we turn it in as a warranty item in order to get a new one. And we've been waiting for 2 years. So that's how we've been able to function through these right now. And that keeps the system, because you can see that little connection there of however long it is, 2-inch, 3-inch long pipe, it's within the system. So if we were to pull that out, we'd have to put a piece of pipe in there in order to close it. So we've just left the unit in there and made it so that we don't have to deal with them accidentally closing and then not ever reopening.
Right.
The other thing to say though is they all have physical valves.
And yes, yeah.
So if they break that to where it's open,
Yeah,
they
and
still have the ability to physically go out and shut.
so within our system, yeah, we still have the manual valve on the system. We have the set valve. Hopefully, most everybody has a shut-off valve up near the house. Not all the houses have that, but that's what we request within the system, so that they don't have to get into the meter pit, the city's meter pit. They can close off the valve up at the house. They have to turn on and off the water. Not everybody has those, but we'll help them when they need to get into the pit.
Are people from the company talking with everybody about that? I mean, this is, when I talk to people who negotiated this system,
Yeah.
maybe it's not time to bring these.
No, go ahead. Yeah,
They said, you know, the people who negotiated buying this system basically have all left the employment of the city by retirement or whatever else. And so they appear to think, or basically, when I talked to them, they said our water system can do a lot more things than most of us know it can do.
Right.
What it can do.
And we'll walk through some of those pieces there. I will say that some of the stuff that the system, like the set valve, we were hoping that the set valve would be able to allow us to turn it on and off from central control and just, you know, and electronically just turn it off. We found that we've had more problems with that, and that's why we've kind of that. It took about a year longer to install the system than what was anticipated. And so the contract went about a year longer than it was supposed to. At that time, the city took over essentially the ownership of the system at that point in time. We hold software agreements with Itron, and I'll talk about Itron in a little bit, and the software system with Tyler in order to move into the utility billing. But I will say that I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say this, is that some of the things that the system was sold to do, it cannot do. And it's better that we keep it more manually within our processes. We're more successful with our guys going out and actually helping with this system as well too. So, and I'll talk about that as we get to those signals too. But these are the other two parts that are on the system. So if you were to open up the pit and everything, this is the transmitter, and this is actually the thing that takes the digital signal from the meter and it sends the transmitter to the Cgr, which is the antenna up on the tower, and then that antenna from the tower pushes it over to central control. So the transmitter it translates the signal, it throws it through the antenna, and that's that little thing that's on the top of the box, the meter pit, and then that goes to the Cgr and on. I think I got a better slide for that. No, I'm going to the Cgr first. So outside of the meter pit, this is what the Cgr repeater looks like. Right now, we currently have 20 units collecting data. We believe that we don't have enough CGRs to cover the entire city. And I'll explain that why as we go through this. So we believe that 20 is not enough for certain parts. This system is on the 900 megahertz system. And so if you know anything about radio frequencies and everything, 900 megahertz is also the little walkie-talkies that the kids play on. It's a very, very basic system. Everybody uses it because it's free, the megahertz system. The problem is that it is very easy to disrupt that signal as well too. So any kind of blockage, anything that gets in the way of the signal could disrupt that signal. And so that while the 900 megahertz system is a very inexpensive system to utilize, it is, we believe we need additional CGRs in the area. And then of course the Tyler system as well too. So we're taking the signal through the CGR system. It goes to the Itron system, which is the AMR software, the automatic meter reading software. Then we have to translate the Itron system to the Tyler system in order to create the bill. And then we send the bill out to an outside group that sends the bill to our customers. And so, but this is all the digital work that is happening behind the scenes within that system. This is kind of a representation of the CGRs. So there's 20 points on there. You can see the circles around them as far as where that circle is, or how far each one of those CGRs reach. You can see that most of them all overlap. I will tell you, when we were looking at this, if it is in red, it is not really a good thing. So you can see how much red is up there, so that you can see where the challenges of the signal are having trouble. What we can't tell is, especially up in the city proper up here, because we have such an overlap of the CGRs, we don't know if it's green underneath any one of those circles that are around it. So that's the stuff that we are checking on. We are actually looking at getting, how many CGRs, 3 or 4? We have 3 CGRs. We're actually going to put one on a trailer and then be able to move that CGR into areas that are having trouble with the readings. And I'll show you how we can tell that. And so we're moving that trailer, we'll move that trailer around in order to know where our problem areas are so that we can set a new CGR there in that area so that we can keep those signals working. I don't believe we've had any trouble with the CGR sending a signal to central control. It's all getting the signal from the meters to the CGR.
So you have 20 zones. Take out the weekends, you've got 20 zones. So we can pull the trailer into each different zone on one day a month or whatever.
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping to find out exactly how to do that. And I will say that the zone map actually doesn't follow just with the CGR, but we have 20 zones as well too. So we have 15,000 meters. You divide that by 20, that gets to be about how many on average we have per zone. So some of these CGRs will be more than, there may be 4 or 5 CGRs within a zone for the number of customers we're reading at the time. But we have 20 zones. We break up all those meters into 20 zones. So when you have so every day of the week, we have a new zone coming online, and I'll explain why that's a challenging piece for us. But
How many will each CGR read?
the CGR, if we had more meters within that circle, it would read them all. It's not based upon the number, is it, Lorenzo?
No, it depends on the area that they're in. The problem being, I mean, from the very beginning, Jeff went to the meeting before, whenever it first started, told him that he thought there was an issue with this propagation study here. And he was never invited to another meeting just because he brought up that issue. These are the people who are giving you information outside of this meeting here. They'll tell you what they believed and what they were sold, but this is what reality is. And Jeff went in there, he'll tell you himself. They never invited him back when he told them that's not enough. Look at all this.
But if the CGR reads all the meters in that circle and we doubled the number of meters, it should read all of those meters within the circle. I mean, there's no.
It will, because they don't attach to the meter.
Right.
To the CGR all the time, so you see on the water boxes, the antenna, they only reach out every 68 hours. So the CGR up here only reaches these when they talk, when it's reaching out to dump information. When it's not dumping information, it's not
a continuous signal.
It's not talking.
How's the trailer gonna help?
So it will read all of them at all different times.
Trailer,
They don't all.
are we gonna park it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Park it for 3 days.
And then even for a day.
The idea is to park the trailer to find with our bad spots. We have,
68 hours.
I'll wait till they're done and I'll explain it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time you take one, that's what we're taking, you said a day each and move it around, but we need to leave it there for a few days, that way it can be, takes a while to. What we're going to use the trailer for is, of course, to find those dead areas that are not working at all. So we have over 2,000 meters we're reading manually within our system. It's a little bit more than that. I'll get to that number when we get there, but we have over 2,000 meters within our system that we have to manually read each month. And so the idea is that we'll park the trailer in those dead areas that we believe we can actually get a little bit better for. All right, so I shared this step by step because I wanted to make sure that everybody understood. The meter reads the flow ultrasonically, the transmitter transmits the digitized information, the antenna directs that information to the CGR. CGR then actually serves as a booster to central control. Once that information gets there, it's uploaded into the Itron system. We learn which meters were read and which ones were not, and those are the manual ones we have to go back out and reread. Itron then reformats that information and uploads it to the Tyler software, and then Tyler downloads the final bill to the billing company. So you can see the process that we flow through. We have 2 software packages in there, and then of course the hardware to get that signal all the way through there. That's the way the system runs through there. We put this together because we wanted to make sure, and Excel does a very good job of this with their meters as well too. And so we've actually said you can go out there and read your own meter because if you wait for us for a leak or something, we'll get there when we get there, that kind of thing. But if they open up that and they look at these numbers and everything, then you can kind of usually see, and especially because these flow meters will actually tell you if there's water continuously running through the meter. And if you're not using water, that's usually a very good sign of a leak. And so then we just walk through that. The number display will actually change every 30 seconds if there's water running through there. And I think Lorenzo said that it's about every 6 hours that it kicks the signal to the CGR. So, all right. And the number display and read the meter from the left to the right. And so anybody should be able to take their bill and walk through that and look at that. Yes, sir.
Every 6 hours, 6 to 8, or is it 68 hours?
No, 68.
6 to 8? Okay. Okay. All right. Because I was getting that 68. Then my question is, every 6 to 8 hours, it gets a signal from my water meter. We pull every or once a month. Is it the latest read? Do we know for sure it's the latest read, or, I mean, if it's getting that's 3 times a day, 4 times a day, it's getting a meter.
It'll be within 6 hours, so it'll be the last reading, 6 hours ago.
The last reading of 6 hours, the one.
That's the number that gets pulled to put onto the.
Tyler? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if there is a problem, we could go back and verify through those reads. All right. We put this together too in order to help the public as they are reading it when they're trying to compare their meter readings. Because, between when we get the signal, the first signal, it could be a 6-hour delay. So the number could have changed. And so the idea is that when you're comparing it, read the big numbers. Don't worry about the decimal points. They don't really mean anything on this point other than movement within the dial. We don't utilize the decimal points to create the bill. It's the actual gallonage on there. Keep in mind that checking your meter on the day different than the one used for billing. You possibly will see a different number, especially if you wash your clothes, do your dish, anything like that within the system. So what we're looking for there is hopefully they're close because it should have a tendency. When you look at the meter info codes, these are the codes that will pop up and they actually say it onto the meter flow. Water is flowing through the meter. Leak, small leak detected. Burst, a bad leak is detected. The way it was explained to me with the burst, because what we are finding within our meters, that the ones that are utilized for irrigation, is that actually identifies itself as a burst because it's not a normal use. And so if you're watering your lawn for 15 minutes in the morning, then it shows up kind of as a burst within the system because it's a difference in what would normally be utilized in that meter because it's looking for it looks for that normal stuff. Dry, the meter has no water in it. Tamper, the meter has been physically abused. Reverse the water flow. So the tamper, if that meter is pulled, cocked, not kept balanced, we can see that. And so real early on, we had people that would go back into the pit and try to disconnect the meter because I guess they didn't want it to read properly. Those are easy to find with this system anymore.
If there's a burst, say for like 2-3 hours, does the city go find out what's going on?
No, it won't. They're not looking at the system that closely because that was one of the things that the system should, it's not like it sends an alarm.
A lot of people have leaks and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
They won't know it till they get their bill and then they're like, oh my gosh.
And that's where we went in and did set the water leak adjustment policy because this won't do what we wanted it to do with the burst as well too. We won't find it.
And I think you'll find that customers in the community, that's one of their biggest gripes is, I've had this leak for 30 days and look at my water bill and why didn't you tell us? Well, without somebody sitting there and constantly looking at that software, you can't tell them.
I would think the software should come up with an alert.
Wow.
But
I guess we would think so too.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that they told us. They said that it would happen.
I mean, 2-3 hours, okay, but 2-3 days, that's a problem.
Well, I'll tell you this, we ran into one that was a problem because it was an apartment complex that was shut down for a little bit. And then when they put people in there and started it back up, they've had a leak. So it never registered a leak, even though it had a leak in there. And so the water would keep running. But they finally found it was right near the hot water softener or the hot water heater. And so this was like 30 to 45 days afterwards.
Well, and one of the other things, and Jeff, maybe you can speak to that, is if the customers actually logged into the system themselves, then they could see that, but we didn't take that portion of the software or.
It's supposed to be a.
Yeah.
And someone would ask for, does she be logging in or have on your app? She could look at it, and that wasn't told, that was the question I brought up originally, because they're like, you go into your thing and turn the sync on and watch it on, oh, that's not true, because they only report 68 hours, 68 hours. And that was for the guaranteed 20-year battery life. That's how they're trying to guarantee it, is they only report 6 to 8 hours. There is no way ever that you can watch the water rise and you turn it on.
You have to check your app every 6 to 8 hours.
The only time that you can give it real-time information, I've got a computer in my truck. You can go out there, you put a puck on top of the water meter, and you can see what's happening in real time. That's the only way you can do that.
Essentially force it to.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is you're willing to do that.
He is. Well, and that, when we're out there assessing whatever the problem is and everything, as we're looking through that. So these are the meter codes that are on the system and why they're there. I put this together in order to help with find your own leak, because I don't know how many customers we run into that we say you have a leak and they say, no, we don't. Yes, you do. No, we don't. Yes, we do. And so we go out there, we send the crews out there to help them find the leak. I mean, we'll go through and check. The biggest problem is that usually in your toilets, because of our harder water, there's an occasion to stick and it doesn't shut exactly the way it's supposed to. I always tell them to put food coloring into that tank and then I'll let it run through that. The city will go out there and help them with that. But it is, if the property owner is in a hurry to find out whatever that is, then this is why we put this out there, was just try to help them get there with that severity of the leak and everything. And really, the more severe that it happens, then if it's really there, the good thing is that if we know, then we're able to help them with the adjustment as well too, when we know the leak is there. The only thing then is the property owner just has to fix the leak. Once we find the leak, they have to fix it.
And the water will go through the meter backwards, but it will not register on the meter?
It should not, the water should never go through the meter backwards. If it does, the meter will say water is going in the wrong direction. That's a bad sign for our water company, because those backflows are that's where contaminants get into our system. So we never want the system to run the other way, but the system will find the signal going the other way.
But it won't register.
It won't count as a number, right? It doesn't go negative.
It doesn't go backwards or.
Yeah, but it says meter running backwards or whatever it is. So.
But it does.
But it does?
Does that set an alarm?
It says it does.
It does.
Does that alert you? Does that alert you?
And Tyler, there's a lot of places that you can see.
We do
You
have.
have to be looking at it to see it. There's no.
We'll have to look at that, because I would have thought that it wouldn't have registered.
No, we've got negative consumption all the time.
Okay.
So you would think that would send an alert, because that's a bad thing.
The thing is, they have the ability to send all these alerts.
Yeah.
We didn't buy the stuff to do it.
Oh,
And when they sold us the system,
They said it
it
was-
will do all this stuff, but they didn't buy the state is another $50,000 to make it happen.
yeah.
So, all right. So right now, within our system, we have an 85.7% read rate on the meters. When I did this presentation in February, we were a little over 90%. So we went backwards a little bit with the number of meters we've been having trouble with. That leaves us 2,718 meters to manually read. Because the whole idea about the system as well too was we were going to be able to reduce our meter readers down, because it was all going to be through the radio read and everything. And it did not do exactly what we
Was
wanted.
that all part of a sold the bill of goods too, or?
Yeah.
Or CGR?
Yeah, we talked really a long time on the 90%. And because that was always the metric we were using. We were going to have a 90% read rate, and that was the way the system was. When the contract was built, there was nothing in the contract that said to reach that 90%. The company did honor that early on as far as where that is, but I think we're starting to learn more about what our system is and what it can and cannot do.
So other than the truck, are we going to have to go buy more CGR antennas?
We have 3 right now already bought, because we knew we had some bad spots. I don't know how many more we think we need, but that's where, once we set one up on the trailer, we're going to start to discover where those areas are. The first CGR that we had, it took us, well, all 3 of them came at the same time, right? So it took over a year and a half to get those CGRs. It was a long time to get them. And so that put us behind, even farther from behind. We had a lot of software setup challenges, because when you're going from an Itron software to the Tyler software, and then we do our winter credits, we do all those different formulas, they all have to be input into there correctly. What we did find is that some of them weren't in there correctly, and so we had to go in there and manually fix them. You can thank Janie for a lot of that. Janie did a lot of that on her own, and then the crews helped as well too. And the problem is that when these formulas were incorrect, and this is what happened, why we had a whole rash of complaints and everything, is that some of these formulas were not discovered until after the bills went out, because we had to respond, we had to do it live. And so essentially what that means is that we do the update to the software system, and then we wanted to have it in we were trying to have it in a box where it wasn't on the real system, so that it would define what the errors in the software were. And when we got to Tyler ended up, we had to do it live. And so that meant anything that was going out that was wrong, we had to find, or the received a bad bill, which is really horrible when that happens as well too. This is the Itron dashboard, and it's got all the little gauges and everything just to watch how to go through there. It talks about the service status, the endpoint out registrations registrations, and then that. So we'll walk through that. I got a bigger picture on that, so you don't have to look at that. Cgr cost. Cgr is, what are they about? They're not that expensive. All right.
Put them on telephone poles or what?
Or anything that we can get up high enough, yeah. So depending on where they're at, that light poles, I think right now is what we have some of them, right?
Most of them on light poles, emergency sirens that are throughout the city. We have them on the siren poles.
We want to get it above the tree level so that it gets central control.
So are any of them being disrupted by the sirens or anything like that?
I don't think anything on the tower is causing any of the disruption. I think it's everything below it. So you park a big truck over the top of a meter pit. Getting through that truck to the CGR sometimes doesn't work well. We've been going out. We've had some meter pits still in the houses, and we've moved those out as well. If they're inside a closed fence, we want them outside the enclosed fence. People are very protective of their property, so we keep trying to move them out to essentially where the parkway is in order to get out there, because people get a little bit different for where we set the meters and everything. So we've been moving all of that slowly as we find them. When you look at this, this is the day report as far as, so we go from 1 day, 3 day, 7 day, 20 day, 30 day, 45 day, 60 day. It has the numerical representation. These are the non-communicating endpoints. So as we go through this thing, we can see exactly how many of the meters are not reading for how long. And then up at the top, we like using this box or this area up here at the top. This is where we show the installed endpoints, 19,439. There's 98% of them showed for the installed. We have 2,718 not communicating, and the read rates are 85.7. The challenge we found as well when we changed over to this system is that not all the meters are in the same location. So it's not the same as just sending out a meter reader to rerun the entire, they can't go from meter to meter to check them. These meters are scattered across the entire area. And so you have to check this one, then you're going to probably go 3 blocks over, check that one, go 4 blocks over, check that one. And so the system got a little bit more point to point, is a little bit more tougher. So this Itron system, when we first had Itron hooked up, we had nobody that could. I think, Mayor, you alluded to that the people that actually worked with the system all the way up to that point left us. We now have more than one person that does the Itron system. We have finance plus utilities actually operating the system. So we have a little bit better handle on how that system works. And this is just a highlight of that to show you the endpoints at the top. This essentially is the distribution of all the meters that are out there. And you can see that we go all the way out to Bottomless Lakes. We have meters all the way out that way. The entire Bottomless Lakes area is on a master meter. It's just up on the highway.
Down to the test facility.
Yeah, down by the test facility. And then they run a lateral line from there all the way through their property for Bottomless Lakes.
What's the one out there towards the base?
Which one?
In between the base and.
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah.
Do you know what that one is? Halfway between? We do have customers outside of
So
this.
Texas is school and it just got. No, that's.
That's not on yet.
It's on that side.
Yeah, the school's not on there yet.
It's on water meter to water all the islands.
This is the relief route here. So it's up that one road up to that.
I don't know.
It's a short strip. I'm not sure what that is, but I will tell you that one of the problems we had when this all got set up, these were all set by longitude and latitude. Some of them are not in the right place. Janie likes to use my meter as a guinea pig. My meter longitude, latitude shows up over by Wool Bowl on the track. I hate to say it, but there's a couple of them in North Carolina, and Robert keeps trying to go over to check to see if they're okay, and we won't let him go. That's the problem with the longitude, latitude, is that we have to go back and make sure that they're all in where they're supposed to be. And so that was that stuff that happened in the field. So know that the company came in and installed all the meters into the pit. We didn't do the installation and everything. That was part of that service. And so whatever they connected to that meter is what we got into our software system. Our guys are now going back meter to meter in order to make sure that it is all what it needed to be. So, but that's kind of a good representation of where they're all located. Here's where we get into the customers, and this is the other big challenge with us. We have 20 billing cycles. So if you follow a calendar, if you have 4 weeks in that month, we have 20 every day we have a new cycle coming on. And each one of those billing cycles have 974 accounts on average for those cycles. So if we have a problem in one cycle on a Monday, and we're still looking to close that one out, on Tuesday, we're hitting a new cycle. So we're reading another one. So if what we ran into a couple of times with software issues, we got in about 3 cycles before we ever caught the problem or knew how to fix the problem. So now we have 3 cycles in wrong, but it helps with the ones going forward. And so that's been the most difficult thing. We've talked about trying to build the cycles differently, but I will tell you that the billing cycle matches up to what Xcel Energy does as well too. They have cycles every day of the week.
Does it still do it on the holidays too?
And we still do it on the holidays, yep. And so then, so it usually takes us a while to catch some of those software glitches. There are fewer software glitches happening. That's the only blessing that we have with that, within that system. So here's just a listing of the meter reading impacts of the customers. So when we went through our rash of complaints and everything, nothing seemed to be going right with us. The worst thing we could do is that we were averaging bills. So Xcel Energy does it as well too. If they can't get a good reading for that, we average the bill. The problem with an averaging of the bill, it's usually less than what you actually used. And so the averaging of the bill, if you average 3 months and then the 4th month you get a good read, it's usually catch-up time. And that throws everybody into a tizzy because of that averaging. We found that at times we've seen transposed numbers. So if we have 2,700 meters not being read automatically, we're going out and manually read them. You flip a 7 and a 9 or a 7 and a 2, that changes the numbers at the end of that. So we are, utilities are actually going out and we're actually doing essentially a 10% rule on just verifying that everything is working, even with the manually reading, to make sure. We've had a lot of trouble with limited access to the meter pits that blocked by vehicle fencing and location. We actually have one customer out there that makes sure that his pickup truck tire parks on that meter pit every night. And so that's the way he does it. And so we have to go read that meter at the right time or ask him to move it. We've had occasions where when it's inside the fencing with dogs and everything. So we have been moving all of those outside of that. We still have a few areas. The mall is a good area that meter is inside there. It's not on the remote read because it's a big meter, but there's a bunch of meters in that closet, but it's inside the building. So we have to manually go in and read those anyway. But these are the biggest impacts to the customer because any of this stuff will cause us to do an averaging or a wrong bill to our customer. And These are actually easy, probably easy ones to fix as well too. So we've had a lot of different customer-related complaints and concerns, the billing disputes. We've had people that actually use less than 3,000 gallons, but our whole thing is that that is the least amount that we charge because that's what the cost of the infrastructure is, plus that much water on there. So we've also run into problems where somebody in their head has decided to no longer be a customer, but they forgot to tell us that they're no longer a customer, so we can't take them off that list. And so if we don't receive a written notification that they're terminating the bill, then we can't shut them off. If they leave it on and there's actually flow going through there, then we're wondering why they were going to terminate if they're still using the water. And so leak adjustments are another big one. We think I believe we've gotten through everybody that had some type of a leak adjustment. The last one that we found was somebody had a leak back in December of 2020 and could never get it taken care of. And so I think we've worked through that one. That one was a hard one because the leak was on the old system, the HTE system, and our correction is on the new system. So that was a little bit tougher. General account questions, online account access, calls not being answered or returned, meter pit access and broadband reads of the meter. So these are all the customer related complaints. I will tell you that with Janie and Laura Johnson over there as our utility billing supervisor now, everybody is set to answer the call. There are not a lot of missed calls. If there are any, I'd like to know about them. But they get the calls answered and because the problems are actually smaller now, then we don't have a lot that carry over. They're usually fixed. I think Laura fixes most of them right now. Not many hit Janie's desk at this point. So these are the customer related complaints. We did put together these systems here. And of course, y'all know about the COVID impact of billing system. The customer assistance programs, that includes the state. There is through the state or the county, there is a system out there for, I'm going to call it poor relief because I don't know what New Mexico truly calls it, but you can get help on if you're struggling for one reason or another. And so that customer assistance programs are out there. And then of course, payment plans and arrangements with the city all the time. We are required by law to collect for the utility bill, but the law does not say when it needs to be collected. But the longer we wait, and that was the hardest part with the COVID and not turning anybody off for non-payment for a year and a half, was that the ones that were paying into the system were carrying the weight of that service. And so now we're trying to bring that all the way back around. We have, I know we're double that. We're probably actually triple the number of people that have not been paying on a regular basis. We usually have about 400 habituals. Pre-COVID, we're over 1,000. And so as we go through these payment plans and arrangements, it's going to be somewhat challenging, we think, because of the number of people that have decided that they'll wait till we tell them to pay. We did put together a utility customer service guide. And so we have the city code and we will be working on that. But within the sections of that, pre this utility book, which we put in place this year in January, we had no leak adjustment policy. And that was why I think we had a lot of leak adjustment complaints that were not ever taken care of because there was no way to get it taken care of. So back in January, we put together the leak adjustment policy. And essentially, it's essentially the sewer portion, right? Because if you have a leak, the water is not going down the sewer. So we have a system now that we can at least help everybody with that. It has some criteria as to how long we can go back for, how much it can be. There's a maximum number of $600 per account on there. And so that takes care of almost everybody out there for most of their issues. And so we've got that system out there. We will be building out this guide to include sewer and sanitation as well too, because the whole idea about a utility customer is trying to make sure they understand the rules that they have to play by. And that's why we put most of this information together. I don't think there's another, the self-serve portal. And I've only got a couple slides on this thing, I think, left. But so we ended up, this was Tyler initiated right before the election. This is when this hit, probably in December of last year. So it was a little bit before the election, but Tyler updated their security protocols. And we had just gotten done going through getting everybody onto the new system, and all of our elderly that have trouble with playing with computers at all, we got them all over onto our new system, and then Tyler changed their security protocols, and we had to reset up pretty much everybody over to this new system of self-serve. And so when they went through all of that, we got done with that, so we had to reestablish again. That was confusing to our customer base as well, too. You can see that there, of course, you have your basic areas to sign up with, and then, of course, you can sign up with any email address as well, too. But I think we've been helping a lot of people try to navigate this. Once you get into the Tyler system, there's not enough prompts for somebody that's not good with the computer. The prompts will lead you to the next step and the next step. So what we have done is that we've asked most of them that can't get there, because any of you that work with any kind of a computer issue is that, well, I'm having trouble, I'm stuck here. Well, you can't see the screen because you're on the phone. And so we have trouble with getting a signal across. So we are actually setting up a terminal in the utility billing office. If we can get them in there, we'll help them set them up on that account and get it all taken care of so that we can actually see what they're struggling with. And if they can't enter onto that and solitaire keeps popping up, that's probably just my tongue in cheek little one. So, but it is trying to get them all set up that way.
We can't help people out in the field too. Well, if they ask, we'll go in and help them set it up on there.
And whatever it takes to get them done. So the final points of this thing, even with where we're at right now, we have less than 1% of our utility billing customers are having trouble. I would say that the ones that we had last year all the way through January, February, the reason that they were so loud, they were frustrated because nobody took care of them and nobody fixed their problem. And I mean, some of them goes all the way back 3 utility billing supervisors ago. And so, but we have actually, when all said and done, we have less than 1% of our customers are having any type of trouble with that. And we've done the utility customer service guide. We've done a lot more employee training. The phone answering is happening now. And we are walking through, we keep working on these audits to make sure that there's a check and balance within the system. So when the guys are out manually reading, we'll send somebody behind some of those in order to make sure those are manually read correctly. And then we have, Janie and her crew keep looking through for the formula issues and everything. We actually believe that there's some meters out there that are not truly being read, and we're looking for those as well too. There's not a lot of them, but there's enough in there that's problematic. And so I think this was the last slide for that. So Mayor, City Council, are there any other questions on this? Yes, sir.
The individuals that have been identified as non-payment, have they been identified as non-payment starting from January, whatever date?
Yes.
Forward? And anything before that, the COVID money kind of took care of it, right?
Yeah, everything before January 1 of this year, residentially, we took care of everybody.
Okay.
Business-wise, we only took care of the ones that, well, actually, we're going through, we didn't do any business ones. We're going to come back to the city council if it's a business that went out of business. Those are the accounts that we will bring back that list, and we can ask for I mean, Ed, you can correct me, but those are the ones that we said we'll keep the utility whole because those are uncollectible debt.
Right.
The businesses that are in business, we did not do that for. So residentially, we brought everybody up to date with January 1 of 2022. And then from that period, everybody we're working with now, they have a late payment from January 1 or sometime all the way up until now. And we'll do a payment plan with anybody for that. We had a meeting as we were setting this up as well too. We had some challenges with, some of them have large consumption, large bills out there, and they can't even keep their current bill current and try to catch up. So we've actually extended out our payment plan a little bit longer to allow those individuals to make the payments that they can afford to make. And then we'll bring everybody up to date, and then we won't lose it. As long as everybody follows through with the payment plans, as long as they agree to do what they say they're going to do and they follow through with it, we can work with them. The ones that we can't work with are the ones that say, yes, I will catch up, and then they don't pay anything at all. Those are the ones that we have to work on. But yeah.
Your average bill, your average one, if they haven't paid anything since January, we'll have a $720 bill.
Yeah.
Because it'll be 8 months times $90.
And depending on their situation with them, because I would say that a lot of them that have the average bill or even less are our seniors that maybe are living off of Social Security already and everything. So we will extend that payment schedule out 12 months. I think right now our policy says 6, right, is the max. And we're going to extend that out a little bit farther if they're on fixed incomes, if they're struggling with something, they don't have a job, they're still trying to pay. So we've extended that out. But yeah, your math is correct.
Everybody let them talk to us. That's what we need to have.
Also, Mr. Mayor, City Council, we did find out that average bill for the cost for those CGRs is about $11,000. That does include the shipping. So that's per CGR. About 11,000.
That's not mounted or anything, that's just.
That's just the unit itself. There's no electrical, because they require electrical antennas, everything else in the city.
So did we figure that in installing, we were thinking 15,000 or 17,000? Is that what we thought?
The electrical pole, depends on the area where we're going to have, right? I install them on existing poles.
Rather than having a separate.
Rather than having a separate pot, but we do have to have power. So we're going to run it off a portable generator on that portable unit. We're going to set up, just see if we can get more reach in that area. But it is going, I mean, you're probably thinking 15 to 17.
Yeah, so it's a higher chunk than I thought, but.
You get my computer from Excel for each one, or you just put pretty much buy the electric on the. Yeah, they have their own.
Unless we have it on an existing, like a side or something like that, where we have city power.
Yeah, city power, that's why we'll research locations. We'll try to set them up on locations where they're easier for us, set them up to that, go to those additional expenses. Yeah. Set up where we're gonna, but it just depends on where we can put them, where we can install them. Then, like we used to do on ready lights, you just get a ready light for $5 a month or whatever.
No, they want everything metered now.
That's why we put them on the warning sirens, because those are already metered. We just, that was acceptable.
But then if you look at that, we install them in different locations. Once we find out the weak areas.
I think the hardest part where we're at is that the way we operate the system is different than we bought it. I mean, that's the hardest part for everybody, I think. The system still works well. Having these ultrasonic meters in there are a lot better than the more less automatic type reading with the controls, because those meters wear out over time and they slow down what happens. So residential meters are 8 to 10 years, and then you need to be either replacing them anyway. These have a little bit longer life expectancy. So there's a lot of good benefits that came out of the system, but it doesn't do everything that we were truly hoping that it would.
What does the meter cost?
Meter is, these are about
It's 340.
340.
400 with the step valve set on it.
440 with the set valve. So the entire assembly is 440 right now with the set valve.
Do you have to put the set valve on? I mean, if you're having to break them anyways.
We do not have to, no. The only reason we haven't stopped that is that one, because the city council approved that this would be the system. I think at finance, they talked about, well, then let's just do away with the set valves. We don't want to do that prematurely without that, because we're under warranty as well too. But that is something that we should just kind of quit on. And so any of those new ones, but I would like some type of council agreement that that's acceptable within the system. Because right now they're all under warranty, but we're 2 years out, we're not getting them. We'd rather get those completed and get those off there. The step valves were a brand new part of the system. And I hate being the guinea pig. And so they put them in there and they were supposed to all work, fantastic. Problem is it doesn't take into account our type of water either. And our type of water has a tendency to be a little bit tougher on things.
I think I remember asking about that. We asked a lot of questions.
And then some of that didn't end up in the final contract and everything. And so all of that it is what it is. We ended up taking on the system because as long as we stayed under the contract, I couldn't get anything done because it was just an argument back and forth. So we got so far into the system, walked through with Lorenzo, Lewis, everybody, finance, and we said, okay, we're taking over the system now. Take it with its warts. We take it with everything because we've got to fix the system quickly. And so that's what we ended up doing.
Mayor, how long was those shut valves on warranty?
I want to say they're going to be on a 20-year warranty, but I have to make sure, but I know they're doing a warranty.
We missed that fine print that it takes 20 years to get them fixed.
We sent the whole shipment back and we have yet to receive one warranty. That was probably about 2 years ago.
And do they update you? Do they send emails that we're still waiting on this or that?
Yes, we have email and I'm asking about what happened to the email, the sent back. On top of that, we haven't purchased some. We just haven't purchased any recently, but we have a newer version of them. There's some of them work and some of them still do not work. So
We don't,
100% work, it could be done, but I don't have to be on site in order to make them work.
yeah, we don't believe within the system, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys had the conversation with the finance committee as well too. We don't believe the set valves are worth the value to keep them.
Yeah, they were what, 180 is what you talked about.
185.
My question though is, are they not living up to the contract? With not returning these, what's their excuse?
We can,
But if we can buy them and they send them to us, but they're not doing the warranty, that tells me what this.
We can't even, right now, we can't even buy it. We haven't bought some. Had an order for 150 for, I don't know how long.
Everything is supply chain.
we can look through that as well too, a little bit deeper.
Maybe that's a breach of the contract. I'm not a lawyer, but.
Right.
Has legal looked at that? Are they in breach of their contract or are they calling force majeure on it and don't have to do it? So, I would question, at least.
We argued for a while of what was promised to the city council and what made it into the contract as well too. And so I think that was part of our challenge as well too, because there's a lot of conversation that happens at a city council meeting. But then when you get down to the letter of the contract and everything, some of that
Contract
may or may not be. That's right. And
It's in there, they're supposed to do that.
but it should, yeah, and it should resemble the conversation is what I'm saying as well too. But we can look through that a little bit farther as well too. But right now they're going to claim supply chain issues just because it works for everybody, But
The shutoffs.
what's that?
The shutoffs. Tell them come Thursday. We're going to.
Come Thursday, that's our day. So we did another push of information out there, everybody, to try to get there. I will say that the crew is going to try to control the number of shutoffs at a time because if we have.
That 1%'s about to change.
Yeah, if we have 1,000 of them coming in at a time, we don't have enough people in order to support the number of people coming in to set up payment plans. So we will be controlling that a little bit. I'll leave it up to them to determine exactly how we walk through that. But again, we'll work with anybody. We'll try to get them in there and try to make sure that they get taken care of. But as of Thursday, we've got to get everybody caught back up and get back to our normal ones.
So you're having to shut it off manually then, since these
Yes.
valve boxes?
Yep. Yeah, we will, for any of those shutoffs, we will go out individually just because we want to make sure it gets done correctly as well too.
Can I ask as a lead up from that, is it the traditional way of going out? So they have the ability to go out with a key and.
The first thing is we will shut off the valves and we'll just leave it that way. We do have some very creative individuals out there that will turn the valves back the other way. Maybe it's the vibration of the ground that turned it back on. I don't know, but it's like, and we will go back out there and shut. And at some point in time, if they don't come in and set up the payment plan and it continues to be a problem, we usually take the valve out, or we have locking lids as well too. So we could put a locking lid on there so they can't enter into that as well.
We met with code enforcement today. They're gonna help us.
So
We had a pre-shut off meeting today to water our trash.
That makes sense.
I'll do a cycle.
You shut off on a Thursday.
and
And then Friday morning, there's so many people. Everybody trying to turn.
That's what she just said.
Meeting closed on Monday.
yeah,
Tim,
yeah, and that is a
cycles. They're not going to shut everyone off one day. They're going to recycle.
Yeah, but you are correct. You never want to shut somebody off on a Friday. Definitely never that. Thursday, you only have Friday to come in, so you don't want a big backlog of, because you won't get done by that weekend as well too. If anybody makes it to the weekend or after hours and they need the water back on, we have an on-call crew that will go back out and get it turned back on. The problem is our field crews will not take money. It has to be paid through a different way because we don't want to put them in that predicament. But you're right, Mayor. It's like, we don't want to make it tough on them. So we would love to have the shut-offs happening on a Monday or Tuesday.
So we're going to do it Thursday before Memorial Day long, 3-day weekend?
Well, we wait till Tuesday, a holiday. Because if you shut somebody off on Friday,
Cycle, okay, so there's a cycle situation.
But you're right.
I'm sorry.
We'll make sure, and I know everybody here that's involved in it, we'll make sure, because we don't want to run into the predicament that we have to come back and expend more time in order to take care of it. So
Yeah.
we're at the end of that now.
I don't want you to put, you got Willie at those letters over to JB White, and it's always when somebody parks in their parking lot, she took a bumper sticker, that you put on there that wouldn't come off, easily.
Sure.
And she went and she put that on your front windshield and you never parked in there again. Because it was hell getting that sticker on. And I'm just saying, if you put something like that on their front door and says, your meter is gonna be off
Okay.
Monday morning. I don't, that'd be a lot of meters you have to go out.
Well,
I don't know, but.
Well, we do put something on their door, right? I mean, when we shut them off, we put something on their door. So what the mayor's mentioning is possibly leave that notice first, and then we'll come back and shut them off depending on that date.
I think gas company does that, and electric
A
company does.
pre-warning, yeah.
Pre-warning that if it's not paid within 3 days.
Because we also, I mean, we talked about it. Excel lets you read your meter as well too. And so all we've asked, if we go out, if they go ahead and read their meter, what we want is we want a picture of that meter top so we see the number so that we can verify that. We've not set that up. I know people have tried yet, but we want to be able to just turn that information in, let us know what the number is.
Yeah, they'll take a picture of it. We can verify.
That's right.
The
Meter number and the usage. So we feel that's at least a way to help them as well too.
But you all need to know because you're going to be the ones in trouble.
So that's,
All those,
how many are we?
all your personal phone numbers on it.
You should.
So how many are getting shut off on Thursday?
I can't tell you that yet. We will wait in full report on Wednesday afternoon because a lot of people are coming in and setting up payment plans. Today, they've had a steady flow over there. So I'm hoping that it's getting out there with the sign up north, all the lists that we've done, that we won't be shutting off a whole bunch, but I won't know that till Wednesday afternoon.
How many meters do you have that were at the end of last month
That have not paid for at least 2 months would be about 3,000. And we probably had, I don't know, 1,200 to 1,500 come in and actually set up payment plans. So, yeah, so it'll be whether they stick to that payment plan too.
The other thing is if they go in and either pay or make a payment plan, you will turn them back on that day.
Yeah.
Before we go home. That's our
That's what we've been told, is that, you know, everybody will get them taken care of that day. They won't go home until everybody's turned on, the shit be turned off.
And you're extending the hours out there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a six, I
We
think.
have them running until midnight, just because you have a lot of people coming home. They don't really want to go out to get out of work by 6 o'clock. They go home, the water's off, and we'll be sitting there. It's for this first one. We're going to have to staff out.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to be able to either pay it online or, I mean, we won't have, billing department won't be open that late.
Right. This is just for the ones they send us people calling in and then to see how we're going to handle all of those.
The nice thing is that if we have any contact with the customer at all, we know who they are. And so we know that we can reach them again. I mean, we.
Now you're talking to them, you're having
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, we know where they live. This is the last slide, Mayor, and this is, of course, the contact individuals. Our utility billing team over there, they've been doing everything they can underneath Laura Johnson, Jamie Davies, Juan Fuentes, Mike, and myself. And so if they reach any one of us, we will get them within the system and we will get them the help that they need. So. All right. I think this is the big one for that. And so we're going to move to this next item. And if you have any further questions, just get with any of us as far as if it's in the field. Lorenzo and Robert are really good for that. Any of the IT stuff, Jeff, and then of course, finance can help on those other sides, but we'll keep working on that. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the second one because we're a little, hour and 15 minutes already. So this one won't take as long, I don't think, in the explanation, but the conversation. This is a report that we did. So if you're in general services, you've already heard this once. I haven't changed much of it in there, but I wanted to make sure everybody else heard this because the cost recovery, I want to make sure everybody's on the same page as to what that means and what it does and how to help you walk through this thing. So cost recovery, essentially this slide's for your guys' use. It's not a complex, it's a complex subject, but cost recovery is figuring out what all revenue you have coming in and how much and where that revenue comes from. And so within that structure, so charging fees, different types of revenue for program services are all relative to those operational costs. The cost recovery does not imply that the target is the total recovery of the cost. However, the target, a target is established based upon different variety of considerations. So essentially the easiest way I can say with cost recovery is some type of a subsidy from the city. So we have property tax, we have gross receipts tax, and we have user fees essentially on those big three as the usage. So the idea is that if we collect more in user fees than we spend less in property tax or gross receipts tax within the structure of that revenue. And I will say that every service like the zoo, the museum has a cost recovery. It just depends on what it is. And I'll show you exactly what the cost recovery is expected for the zoo, the museum, and the golf course at the end of this year. But this was a way of how to determine what cost recovery should be set at. This was put together by a company called Green Play. And they do a lot of parks and recreation stuff. So essentially they say if it has a high community benefit, then it's okay to utilize property tax, sales tax, or any of the city funding in order to cover that. But as it goes up this thing, mostly community, individual community benefit, mostly individual, and then of course individual benefit. As it goes up this pyramid, then the cost recovery changes. So down here, this may be like a park event, just a bouncy house is out there that's open to the public all together. All the way at the top, it might be a karate class where it's an individual use. And so as you go up this thing, this is the way they try to help cities and communities figure out exactly how to set a cost recovery within that structure. We put this into the 2020 budget, and this was us going through trying to help our crews and everybody know there's 5 different tiers on here. Again, this is reversed from the pyramid. So the tier 1 is that community portion, that's 0 to 15% cost recovery, and then you work your way up, and then there's 100% cost recovery if there's no community benefit or it's intended to benefit one individual and no residual value for the community at large. So this is how you go up and down within the cycle. Just when you look at the pyramid to this, is it's reversed. The reason we put this together is it has examples to follow. And so there's lines on there that say, this is how you look at that. And then when you look at the examples, signature special events, open swim, community activities with low cost recovery. You get up in the highly individual adult trips, adult team sports, adult special interest, and so on and so forth. So that's the background on cost recovery and how that term came to be. State of New Mexico and the city of Roswell has always had some type of cost recovery for all of its services. The state does it, Roswell does it. Cost recovery became a big topic of Roswell over the past 5 years. One is establishing how to manage through the anti-donation clause within the Constitution. Generally, the way we believe it with the anti-donation clause, and it had a lot to do with the lodging tax and city services, but the anti-donation clause, we essentially establish a contractual relationship with whoever it is, and that actually creates a benefit for both sides as to how we get there. We've had those conversations with even like waiving of the lien on the church property and everything. We have to show that justification. And so that's where cost recovery becomes a part of that. The increase of needs for services that cannot generate its own funding. So I've got public safety and roads listed here. So when we established the cost recovery, and we've never seen the full benefit of that, but the whole idea is that nobody will let me reset a quota for police. I can't get a quota of tickets so we can get some money flowing in here, but a little bit of trying to be funny. But the public safety is that we can't do that. And so police are stuck with the money that we provide them for that service. The other side of this thing is even on roads. One of the crime and roads are our two biggest complaints out of our public. We can't raise taxes. I mean, property tax changes based upon the growth of the city and then inflation. So it changes by the market rate and then changes by the number of new houses we have or properties that we have coming in. So the improvement on the properties, that increases property tax. Gross receipts tax is tied directly to the economy. It's what is everybody buying the goods and everything. We utilize both of those to fund public safety and roads. So the challenge comes is that if we can find those individuals that are utilizing the zoo, the museum, the golf course, and all those different services, then, what we find with them is, well, hopefully we're not using public safety for a lot of tourists coming in, but we probably are. But the idea is that the zoo, the museum is enjoyed by people from outside of our community. They're the ones that are not paying property tax. And so those are the challenges that we have within the structure. And so what we try to do, because we truly can't generate any new money, that means we have to reallocate the money within our system. And that was the whole idea about cost recovery and how to get to that. I just have the anti-donation clause on there because we changed and made a lot of people unhappy back in 2018. We changed how the lodger's tax was working. And what was really nice is that we changed it before Larry Barker got to our community. Larry Barker got to Las Cruces. They were spending lodger's tax money incorrectly, and they got in trouble. I think the lawsuit is still going on, or the lawsuit, I'll call it that. The litigation is still ongoing there in Las Cruces to resolve that. We actually amended our whole policy and said if there is not a relationship on that, it can't just be for the value of that. We have to define it a lot better legally. And so that's what this is in there. This does not say that you can't help. It says that you have to help in a certain way. That's all I'm trying to say with the anti-donation clause. And then these are the relevant AG opinions through there. I liked a couple of these, and that's why I put them in there for you to see as well too. A city cannot make donations to a chamber of commerce and include such contributions in the city budget. So that was an attorney general opinion in 1943. The one up there at the top in 1990, the Department of Public Safety cannot provide the use of the dormitory and meals to the Boy Scouts of America troop at a substantially reduced cost. There has to be that value back, and that's the whole idea of this cost recovery is a justification. I'm not going to read them all, but so the idea is that we have to establish that process. The county commissioners may not contribute 500 to an American Legion War Memorial, which is erected up on the county courthouse grounds.
Well, it looks to me like everything here basically throws out everything with that pyramid, because even if it's super good for the community, everything here says, well, you can't help them.
But I think I think it's the way we justify it out, and that's where we found ways, and we initially started with in 17. You were there with us as well too. We tried to create this signature event, and we only did it for 1 year, and that was saying, all right, the fair, Main Street, the UFO festival. I think we had 2 other things in there, our signature events of the city. Therefore, we have this contractual relationship. And I will say that what nobody did here is they did not run back through that justification. You guys have had that conversation with UFO Festival. You know, I would say that when we get this report done, you're not going to see that we lost money. We spent money, but there was a return on the other side. And if we can provide the justification, then it works. So I don't, you know, looking back into these things deeper to find out exactly what caused them, because the Attorney General opinions are based upon how you ask the question, how you put the stuff out there. And so I think that's where we would want to walk through and say, what is that and how was that done? Because I believe that there are ways in order to help these groups, but we create the relation. Boys and Girls Club's a great example.
And I was just going to say, it all comes down to, we don't know what questions were asked of these attorney generals to get this. But for instance, the Boy Scouts, if you were to call it Boys and Girls Club there, were they doing a project that was helping something within the city? Were they cleaning out the canal? Were they doing something that was beneficial? That there was if that would have been correctly.
Well, I'm looking at like the Walk for Hope. That helps. You've been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Thousands of people go. It's open to everybody. Like the Boy Scouts thing, I could see it's not open to everybody.
Right, yes,
But it's open to everybody, and any funds they raise goes back to the community.
Right.
But they would be at the very bottom of your pyramid because they're good for the community. But at what point do you determine where they are?
It all goes back into that really. The Boys and Girls Club is probably the best example I have that affected us personally. Back in, I think it happened before I got here, so it was back before 2017, the state canceled the lease agreement with Boys and Girls Club because the value wasn't back. There wasn't no justification within the structure as to we're going to do this lease and this. That's how we got to the present model. We have a lease for the building and we have a service relationship with them that if the Boys and Girls Club were not taking care of those kids at the Boys and Girls Club, that would be a service we would provide. And so we said, no, we partnered with this group. That's why we built our leases that way. I would say even for Walk for Hope, we can build it the same kind of scenario. And if all that funds are coming back, then it's easy to justify too within record keeping and all that different stuff. That's the stuff that you kind of watch out for. I am also, though, I'm a proponent of, if we have all these events that are also good for the community, we have a very giving community. Find sponsors to take care of those costs, make them a part of the solution as well too. And I think that my fear, and I talked about this real early on in 2017, it got to the point where it was just easier to come to the city and ask for the money because it's only one trough. If I wanted to get as much money as I was getting from the city, I would have to go talk to 6 other people in order to get the same amount if they would.
Well, in their defense, they do. They get a lot of sponsors.
Yeah, they do. And I think everybody out there does that. But that's where I'm sitting there going, for some of these activities, it's better to have the community support them anyway as well too, because it protects that entity a lot longer too.
Well, and that was just like they kept asking.
I have a hard time in my mind determining how, if you do away with the fees at the zoo, how that can be. I talked to an anti-donation donation clause.
And I'll walk through that when we get to that section of the slide. The fees are only just a part of that. You know, you can argue both sides of that we can't give away free service, but I would say that our structure right now, we give away discounted services to special classes, right? We give away free days. We have those processes out there. I believe that we can still go through that. If you were to eliminate the fee for the zoo, for the entry fee, I believe you have every ability to do that because we're gonna back it up with everybody's property tax. I mean, where property tax is gonna pay for that user fee rather than collect it from anybody within the city. My argument on the other side of that thing is that when we have 60% of the people visiting the zoo are from out of town not paying property taxes, we're the ones footing that bill for it. That's my challenge. But I think we can find that model, Council.
And again, if we want to make it a tourist zoo, that's fine. But that zoo belongs to the city of Roswell.
Correct.
The citizens of the city of Roswell.
Right.
And they have paid money through their taxes and what have you. And so my argument is we meaning the citizens, have already paid money to use that zoo.
Right.
And if you make it a membership type of zoo.
Right.
Then it becomes an exclusive club type of service for individuals that live here. And the same thing goes with the recreation center and the aquatic center.
And I think those are the challenges we have is that, and it really starts with you guys as the governing body. What type of zoo do we have? And we went down this master plan stage. We went down with the council. They said, we want the zoo to do X. You know, and where we're back at now is we've got a little bit of a twist on where we were at to where we're going. And I think those are the things that we have to determine fairly quickly in order to move that forward. But Mayor?
And look at this, the zoo's one thing. I mean, that's one thing. But, I go back and look at how our little leagues were determined here. And you had East Side, which was basically it was GOE in the air base. And all the low income people in the single parent households where lower income housing was over there. Then you had the middle income people over here that were in Lions Hondo.
Yep.
And then you had the Ricos, they were over here and when you look at that, I mean, sometimes you almost doomed some kids to failure because when you had the single mother, to me was an income level of a single parent household, they didn't even have coaches that you could get on the east side of town. And then you go over here to this other one and those kids could get together and show up, with the other one. And they had 3 aluminum mats and a bag to carry their bags in. And I mean, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of economic discrimination that is so hard on children.
Right.
And that's, I guess, when I looked at that, and now East Side Little League's gone. So now you've got at least, it's a lot more diverse where you have, you can really have, 2 leagues that can really.
But our zoo is the first because we allow free days. We'll have veterans discounts. I believe we have citizens of Roswell discounts and our tourists pay a little more. We've worked it to where it works.
But I'll go back to the problem I have with that analogy is Lions Hondo fields, go look at them. They have lights on most of their fields where New Knott doesn't.
Correct.
So you start looking at that, but it wasn't the city making that change. New Knott or Lions Hondo came to us and said, hey, we want to buy lights. Can y'all pay for half of them and we'll pay you back? And made the agreement and we did it.
I can argue that too. I mean, you go look, has their own soccer field. They have their own lighted.
They had Dan Foley that put all the money into it.
Well, I'm just saying though, and that's a school system problem, but you know, at Roswell High, they had one less period to practice than Goddard did for all their sports. And that's because of the way their system was designed. Roswell High kids had one less period.
So we ran into a similar problem at the rec center when we were setting up basketball in there. So we had our staff members, you know, they wanted to set up a very competitive basketball league within there with the kids that knew how to play. In my mind, that wasn't our job. Our job was to teach all kids basketball. It's not at the skill set. That's the community benefit of that level. When you get into these associations, it becomes a little bit different because we're talking about the city's portion in these associations. I mean, look at what it costs somebody to play football as well too, because it's all the pads and everything, and the parents have to pony up in there. The east side is a very good example though, and going back on Mayor's point as well too. That was an association-driven group that lost all their workhorses or all their people that could help hold it together. They lost their vision. Lions Hondo and Noon Ops has a very active group out there. Lions Hondo has I would say the second tier. East side, actually, they collapsed in on themselves because nobody gave of their time. And I think that's where we have to be cognizant of that economic difference in order to try to help balance some of that out as well too. I mean, we should have a lower income level of a ball that everybody can play. And those are the things that I think that are a full community event. The travel teams, it's very expensive to be on a travel team. My understanding is that they've doubled the number of travel teams that are going out there and playing and everything. I don't know how softball's doing as far as travel teams and everything, but I don't know. And so
I look at that, that's not the city's responsibility.
it is not. But they want use of the field space.
Yeah.
And so we should be treating the travel teams different than our associations. Because I think in the association, they still let everybody play. They just try to divide them up by skill set, right? I mean, they try to have the same number of good players as learning players. So I don't want to get too lost on the opinion and everything, because I wanted to get through some of this other stuff. So here's how we got to the cost recovery for Roswell. It was my understanding as we were looking at trying to increase money to streets, increase money to the public safety and everything, we did not want to cut or reduce any services. That meant we had to find a way to add more funding within there. And so we established the model of the cost recovery. We had in 2020, there was a cost recovery for overall of the city of a 50-50. Until or unless the city council establishes a specific guideline, we set a minimum and maximum for cost recovery of 0 to 160% of the total expense. So in some of these cases, and think of it as a gas station convenience store. All right, it doesn't cost them $2.49 to buy a candy bar. I mean, for the store to buy it. They mark it up. And so what we've done is we've said, we're going to, if you're buying a pop in our concession stand or something, then our markup will not go beyond the 160%. That's the idea of why we set these things there. The zoo, and those of you that were on the council at the time, remember we ended up establishing a cost recovery through the city council, a 4-year cost recovery, and it was to mark up every year for those 4 years. We came back right after COVID though, because that model was not going to no longer work. And we established a city administration one saying that's where the 70-30 came from. It was a city administration set cost recovery where it was more of an informal setting of that cost recovery. It says you need to be, as a department head for that service, you need to be looking at where are you going to come up with this much money. And I'll show you why we haven't made it there yet. But the idea was that we would do a 50-50. And then we would do the 70-30 depending on certain services. And then these were just the minimum and maximum as to what the recovery would be, because some of these things we want to make more money back on. So if it's our brand, if it's, the alien glasses, and I was over in Alamogordo this weekend and everything. And so I think we sell them for about $8, the alien glasses. we buy them for about 2. Over in Alamogordo, they're selling them for 10. You know, I mean, it's just that cost recovery for that. Yes, sir.
But are we contradicting ourselves to some degree? Because what we're doing is being competitive with the people that we're supposed to be supporting, the businesses. By using city material that we're selling, we're actually taking away from the businesses downtown.
And I would disagree with you. And the only reason I would disagree is that we don't sell to compete, we sell to complement. So the stuff that we sell has our brand on it. Well, all the money we make for the city, it's not going to our pockets or anything else. It's going back out to the city. The challenge we have is that and I can't figure out a good way to ask a business downtown how well they're doing through GRT. But what happens with the way we're structured is that on the stuff that we sell, we get GRT plus we get the price markup of that product. And we get a little bit more money that goes back into the kitty because it all goes back into the coffer for that. So I don't look at it as, I look at competition as not being competitive as much as it is complementary. And I'll just share one economic story, and that's where if McDonald's builds a restaurant, I can guarantee you Burger King will try to build across the road from it because now as a consumer, you have to pick one or the other.
Yeah, but we here as a city are supposed to be supporting the businesses and not competing, not competing with them.
But we're not.
Well, let me,
Yeah, go finish.
and the reason that I say that is because at the convention center, if they don't use the kitchen, then we charge an extra 18% for them to be catered in.
If somebody comes in from the outside, we charge 18% on that for the use of our kitchen for their purpose and for the use of what they're there.
So we're actually competing with the restaurants.
No, we're taking care of our kitchen.
Let me finish.
Yeah, I don't see it. And for all intended purposes, we're actually considered a poor community. I mean, because if you look at some of the figures that from the census, when you compare New Mexico with Roswell and then nationally, the median household income for New Mexico is 51,243 compared to Roswell, 45,493 compared to the nationwide, 64,994. When you compare per capita in the last 12 months, New Mexico ends up with 27,945. New Mexico at 22,985 and national is 35,384, which means that you have more poor people in the community than you have more affluent individuals.
Counselor, one thing I would ask you to do is go back and look at the 2010 census on those same numbers. 45,000, that is income that is here in Roswell for the family, is higher than what they were making in 2010. I can't remember exactly what that number is, but I know it's significantly higher from that number. We are elevating our entire community. We have a 20.7% people in poverty. That number did not change from 10 years ago. And so we've done well at holding those numbers together.
When you look at education, high school education, the state has 86.5%, Roswell has 79%, nationwide has 88.5%, bachelor's degree or higher. New Mexico has 28.1%, Roswell has 18.6%, and nationwide is 32%, 32.9%. So all I'm saying is you're trying to get money more from the disadvantaged individuals than by creating exclusive clubs.
And I would disagree only to the point of, there was one example I wanted to share that because you talked about it. The zoo was paid for by all the people of Roswell. The zoo is worn out. It now has to be fixed. Are we going to go back to all of our people and say, we now have to fix this zoo and bring everything up? $36 million was the master plan estimate for that zoo. I would rather take other people's money in order to get that done. And that's my challenge with that. And I think that's why we've established the structures we have in order to not overly burden the ones that cannot afford it. And I think that's the challenge that you all have, is to try to figure out that balance. I don't know if there is a one size fits all with any of that. I'll stop so that you guys will stay calm and talk.
Well, and you're saying that I'm sorry, may I talk?
Yeah, go ahead, but he also raised an hand. So,
You want to talk first?
Go ahead, I'll say something.
What I'm trying to say is, yes, we have a visitor center. They tell everybody where to go. And everybody in this town, including our golf course, our zoo, and everybody down Main Street or anywhere else, has the ability to come to the visitor center and purchase any shirt, any glasses, anything for wholesale that has our logo on it. They can mark it up as much as they want at their store, as you were using the glasses example. Anywhere they are. They can come from Alamogordo and buy Roswell branded t-shirts, take them back to Alamogordo. They bought them here for $2.50. They can sell them for $5 to $10 over there. That's not making money for Roswell. That's selling our brand so our tourists will come in. That's the same thing with our zoo. So you're telling me, just a round estimate, $30 million to rebuild the zoo.
36. Yep.
36. So are you willing to take $36,000 out of the general fund of police and roads to rebuild the zoo for the Roswell public that doesn't go that much?
To answer that?
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. My answer is we don't have to put $36 million into the zoo because the zoo was okay the way it was. So you don't have to spend $36 million. That's just a dream that somebody came up with.
It's not okay.
Well, it may not be okay with you, but it is okay with some of us.
I yield.
I hear what my fellow counselors are saying, but I just want to mention, the zoo had gotten in a rough place. I mean, a lot of people who walk well don't have problems with walking. May not have a problem walking at the zoo, but quite often I'm using a cane. There are other people who do have some walking problems. And it had gotten to a point, we had areas of the zoo that were shut off because it was hazardous to even be able to walk. We had areas of animals that were going to have to be closed down completely because we're not kept to the standards of what is required for it. I guess I would say this, my family are zoo people. When we travel, we visit zoos. We've been to the National Zoo, Pittsburgh Zoo, San Diego. We've gone to a lot of them, Oklahoma City. This is the only zoo that I've ever been in that was a free zoo, except for, the National Zoo. Yes, let me say that. But Chattanooga Zoo was a free zoo, and it looked like a free zoo. And when they went through making it payable, and everybody got upset about it and all, but when they did, and the tourists that come through Chattanooga start paying for it, my sister just took them through the Chattanooga Zoo. And at one time in Chattanooga, the best thing we had was a Hank the chimpanzee, who was a bazillion years old, and we had some peacocks and some prairie dogs, and that was just about it. Now they've got now they got giraffes, and they've got cheetahs and different things that they'd never had before. In New Mexico, Albuquerque, I think Albuquerque owns that zoo. The city of Albuquerque owns that zoo. I think that the city of Alamogordo owns that zoo. Clovis, New Mexico, I think that the city of Clovis owns that zoo. and they're very good zoos. And we pay to go to them. We pay to go to them. And so I just want, we're not doing something that's out of the norm by having a fee at the zoo. Now, I guess my problem is that if we've got to maintain the zoo, at least to the level as it was, that takes money. And I think what Joe was saying is that takes money away from the police department. That takes money from the streets department. If if Roswell is truly as impoverished of a place as has been stated, and I recognize the medium household income and everything, but then the other option to me is either we fix what we have with the best way we can, which this is a good way to do so, or we stop having a zoo and we stop having a museum and we stop having a recreation center. And we stop having the swimming pool because we are competing. The swimming pools are competing with the community swimming pools. We stop having the bike paths. We stop having the golf course. We just eliminate those services. Then we can focus 100% of our GRT and our monies on the police and on our roads. But then we're not going to have the people to drive on the roads or the people to need these services because crime now goes up because there's nothing to, it all intermingles. These what do we call them? These services like Parks and Rec,
Life
enrichment services are necessary for a community to bring people in, to bring business in, to bring these things into a community. But we've got to, in my opinion, look at it logically. When we've got 60% of the people who are visiting that zoo from out of town, why would we not want them to contribute?
But I would say, and this, Mr. Mayor and councilors, this is not about whether or not to charge a fee or not. It's to explain the cost recovery because it can come a lot of different ways. We got into the conversation about how we work. We have 5 storefronts in town as well in the city. So we have the museum, we have the zoo, we have the air center, we have the visitor center, and we have the recreation. We sell goods out of all 5 of those. We try to make them identified with the entity that's there. That money goes in and it helps support each one of those functions. In the case of, and probably in the case of most of them, except for recreation, the money goes actually into the general fund and then it gets redivided again. So every dollar that goes into the general fund, 24% of that dollar that goes into the general fund of the t-shirt that we sold, 24% of that goes to the police department. Those are the kind of things that are within the cost recovery. I'm gonna keep moving if that's okay, so that I can get through these. Okay, this is a very good slide to look at the cost recovery guidelines in place. When we talk about this evolved over time. It went from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and then 2022. As we brought in the golf course as our full department as well too, we set a cost recovery out there because we wanted to make sure that hit those cost recovery guidelines. So when we're talking about, when you're thinking about how to change this model or what to do with it, this is how we got there. This is that structure that we flowed through in order to get there. I used the Spring River Zoo because we did a lot of work on the zoo as we were trying to figure out exactly what to do this. The revenue and sponsorship recommendations, we talked a little bit about that with the shelters and everything around the pond. I would like to see if we can find sponsors or people that would donate to help put the trees, help put the benches, help put all that out there. That's part of that revenue of trying to generate that. But these are the primary categories that are out of the zoo. We said, all right, where does your revenue come from? Where's this all coming from? These are all the different things. On-site donations, programs, birthday parties, partners with local businesses, hosting the fundraising events, entry fees, concession merchandise, and sponsorships. In 2018, after we got done with the master plan, we actually put out donation boxes in the zoo in order to give people an opportunity to throw $1 in there, throw a quarter in there, whatever it is. And so we ended up converting that room in the back of the office to a birthday party room. And again, come on out. We'll do an encounter, an animal encounter. You get to get up and close and personal with one of the little critters. And so the idea was to try to provide that benefit back to that. They've all been relatively successful to some end. This slide here, I won't go into a lot of detail on this, but this was how we got to the service fee process. This is how we actually created it. And we took the fee and we go through the fee formula. That's the percent of the cost recovery. So right now, if you use 70% of the cost recovery, times the program expenses, how much does it cost, times the number of participants within that program. There are certain programs out there, recreation is a great example of that. There are certain programs out there that we intend to lose money at because of the individuals that need to utilize that service. We keep it very inexpensive in order to do that, but we want to make it up on the other side with other things. So as you walk through this, we established the fees to meet those requirements, prepared for city manager approval. Then the fees go through there. All the fees that we have out there have been set by city council, not by the city manager. I set the cost recovery guidelines. The fee itself is set by the city council. We've had a lot of conversations about the zoo fees and everything else, and we're still having those. I asked for getting to see it first so that I can figure out what are we trying to accomplish, because we have some planning and zoning fees coming forward very soon. I want to know, what does that do? Does it cover the full cost of the service or a portion of it? What is that actually covering, so that we can figure out that when you guys ask the question, when it gets on your table, why did we pick $100 or why did we pick $50? That's the stuff that I want to try to make sure we have answered. And then we do 2 documents for that. The one thing that we do with the fee resolution is that we will tell you what the current fee is, plus what the new fee is, and then a justification why we recommended the change. Then it goes to you guys, you debate it, you discuss it, you set the fee where you want to set it as. The fee itself is not set based upon cost recovery, truly set on that. It is set based upon what the value of that service is, and we're going to get there. What we did try to do is that fees will include an in-town or out-of-town rate, because those that are paying property tax within the city pay 24% more for any services that are served through the city in the general fund. We provided 4 to 6 free days per year. We established discounts for the current military citizens over the age of 65, family groups of 6 or more. Occasional discounts for smaller activities. We do a special event for one thing or another. We may charge a discount within that because we want a certain class of individual there. So if we're trying to reach the low income, we're going to set our fee structure a little bit differently for what that is. And then we developed out a sponsorship program where the businesses and interested individuals. We have a very giving community. I mean, we have a lot of oil and gas here anyway as well too. Talking to those people, asking them for their help to help make it easier, setting up the programs through, give us $2,500 and that'll pay for 10 memberships for lower income individuals to come to swimming every day and everything. So we have methods in order to set all that up, is what I'm trying to share here. This is the last slide, and this is the slide I wanted to make sure I showed you because Councilor Hildebrand asked this question as well too in the budget. How close are we going to hit how we're budgeting? What we've done for all 3 of these services, we didn't keep the expenses down to the level of what the revenue was that was there. We gave them the expenses of how to operate it correctly. And this will be the 3rd year that we've done that, which means that it's going to be offset by the city funding in money at the end of this budget because they were not able to reach even that cost recovery. So when I said that every service has a cost recovery, the museum's expected cost recovery is 93.7, not 70/30. It'll be 93 covered by the city, 7% covered by so it's 7/93 is what it is. Same thing for the zoo. It's going to be 7% is going to be generated by the revenue of the zoo, 93% by the city covering those costs. Golf is a little bit better because it's a more individualized sport too. It's not, the community benefit is just to those that like to play golf. We're just trying to increase the number of people that want to play golf, whether it be night golf, whether it be whatever those fun little pieces are. But at this point, we build this budget. This is the budget cost. This is the enrichment services. If they were to hit 70%, this is how much money they're supposed to be generating. This is where they are at currently. This is how much we're going to have to cover if this scenario hits. Now, right now, we build it into the budget this way as well too, because we protected those funds. We're hoping that they will generate more revenue of their own. But if they don't, we've got the coverage. If they generate more money, we now have more money here that we can move into some other service that we're providing. That's the system we have. This is going to be the challenge that we have as we walk into that, because there's only so much money to give to every service. And when Councilor Perry talks about, not giving to the police or the streets, it's a prioritization. It doesn't matter where it's at. It's your guys' decision as to prioritize what you're going to do. But when all the money is allocated, just like we got done with this budget, we have nothing left else to give until we have new money coming in, whether it be GRT or anything. So that's the challenge we have as we walk through this thing. I think Councilor Hildebrand said it really well early on. How much money are we generating at the zoo? And I think it was like $25,000 from local funds. And it's like, why are we fighting over a 70-30 if it's only $25,000? We believe that the progression of it is what we want to make sure that happens. As the zoo gets better, I will tell you that, and I was taught a long time ago, people are willing to pay a fair price for good service. If it's not good service, they hate to pay the price. And that's that kind of model that we're always challenged with. That's where when staff doesn't do something exactly right and we're getting the complaints and everything, that's where it kind of hurts a little bit, because now we have to rebuild that trust. Now we have to rebuild that stuff in order to keep that customer happy. But I wanted to share this as well too, because right now that's what we believe the cost recovery will be for those entities, even though the city administration goal is 70-30 and 50-50 for adult and kids sports. So, Mr. Mayor, I think that was my last slide. I just wanted to make sure, because everybody, you had been asking to say, tell me about the 70-30, tell me about the smart meters. There's the information. Now, all you have to do is let us know, where do you want to go from here? That's the next steps in this thing. How do you want to set up this model? Because there's a lot of different ways to eat the elephant. I should be careful. Somebody got mad at me for saying the word critter at the animal control meeting. I called dogs and cats critters. It's like, I'm so sorry. Now I've said eat the elephant. So, all right.
So from what I understand, this year, between those three entities, we collected $450,213 and $26 to go to the general fund to divide between streets and police. Is that correct?
Projected to do.
Projected. Okay.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. To a certain point, we did set the museum and the zoo and the golf up as special revenue. So I would say that this money stays in their account. We just don't have to take it away in order to take it from that. So really just to protect.
That amount would have to go from the general fund to them to either repair, take care of, feed, clean stalls, whatever.
And I will tell you, I think the one I'm been exciting to look at right now, the museum and the zoo are doing okay and everything, but the golf is actually beating its expectations right now.
Sweet.
The services are, they're getting better, and we're getting some of the golfers back and everything, even though we've got some that are not happy with.
Yeah, we heard that the other night, that they're not happy. Is that changing? Is the clubhouse changing? Inventory's coming in, those kind of customer service things are getting taken care of.
So after that meeting, Mike went out actually before the meeting, because we knew we were hearing some of that. I think Councilor Best actually took a tour out there as well too and talked with David Blewett. We actually gave some direction to Jim Burris as our special service, saying you need to move some more of those temps over into that area.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten a lot of stuff caught up. I think the biggest challenge has been so far, and this was frustrating for the golfers, was that we put in for some pathway improvements. We put it into the ICIP. We did not get any money for that. And so we had no money set up of our own money in order to deal with that one, because that was that first year that it went in there. Those are the things that are hard for our public going, well, you said you were going to ask for a grant. We did ask for the grant. We did everything we said we were going to do. It just didn't materialize. So how are we tackling that now? And that's where we have the crews out there now remeasuring. making sure we know exactly how much of it is supposed to be done. Because I think all they were going to, all that, we had one proposal for about $160,000. And that was to just fix the bad areas. I said, well, how much do we have? Because again, maybe we can split it up a little bit differently, just like we were trying to do with the tennis courts. And he did it a little bit different. So, but it's getting better, I think.
Go ahead.
The frustrating part I had listening to that was that they said since the city took over, well, the city has always had the maintenance of it. David Blewett has always been our employee and we've always been the maintenance portion of it. So when they were saying the greens have gone down, blah, 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 well, that has always been the city. The pro shop was the only thing that changed and the running of the pro shop and some of the other services, but the maintenance of the course has always been the city and never gave that up. So that.
We had some personnel changes out there. So we have one individual out there in the national. And so what we had to do is we had to retrain our staff to know that we're built to get the work done. So if you take one person out, that means something's not going to get done. You need to go and ask, so let's get a temp in there. Let's get our 2 temps or whatever that is. That's what happened, is that the individuals we have out at the golf course have actually shifted. So we have one out of National Guard. We've had one out there that's had COVID, I think 3 times. And, you know, but rather than to fill it, they tried to get by because they're trying to save the penny. And we're saying, no, save the service, not the penny. That's the whole model difference of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, you know, and it's either, you know, sometimes on some of it, I can understand where you're coming from on some of it and stuff, but I think sometimes, you know, there are things that, like Walk for Hope. I mean, to Walk for Hope at every economic level, walking around that shield grounding, walking around there, and, you know, and there were a lot of community involvement in that. I mean, banks, everybody had their different tent, they put it up, and I know it costs us money, but that's one thing that got every person at every economic level, every race, walking around that place together. And, you know, that has a huge benefit about getting people to know who belongs in your community, who doesn't, who you might meet, who you might see with their name on a sign. And I mean, you know, that's, all that stuff is really, really beneficial, I think, in your community. And when you turn around and you look, you know, at the zoo, you can go through it, and when you look at the zoo, I mean, things have happened. My brother and I gave him the zoo money one time, and I know Philip White gave him $50 or $60 or $40 or $60,000 to name a cage after his dad. And now all that stuff's all been gone, thrown away. And, you know, sometimes why would anybody else give you money if you disregarded the whole thing? Now, when he you know, he took the money, but that's just what he did when his dad died. And, you know, you look at that stuff, and that stuff has to go to get it, to keep it going. But when you look about the only, you know, one of the biggest things I think to the zoo that I thought was really good, there were so many kids out there fishing. There were lots of kids, and so now I guess everybody has to pay $10 for it. But for a lot of kids, that's not really in the realm of possibility. It seems like to me to pay that, to go out there. And I know when we got the fish from the state, I thought those were all, they'd come in and stock it, and I guess you had to let everybody fish. But you know, that was just something where you got kids off the cell phones, and then you turn and look at the symphony in the zoo. That was always something that was pretty, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't go to the symphony. I've been to the zoo once or twice for the symphony in the zoo, but I mean, I'm just not a music fan, and that's fine. But, you know, that thing was really, we do have we're probably one of the only communities of our size anywhere in the state or anywhere around us that has a symphony. And I mean, to keep that going is for something just for culture.
Let me give you just one other tidbit of the background, because you triggered something with me, and I'll use Walk for Hope as an example as well too. And those of you that were on the council will remember these conversations. Those of you that were active with these groups as well too. In 2017, when I got here, we had departments making their own decision. We actually were cutting checks to certain individual groups out there as well too. Not all of them, but certain individual groups. We were providing in-kind services to certain groups, but not all the groups. This was all done without council approval. So the whole system that we set up at that point in time was to run it through the city council. We were spending over $400,000 a year on helping everybody else do all these activities. And we didn't hire one person in the department. So what happens is that every time they were helping these events and everything, they weren't doing the job they were hired to do. And then we were getting chastised for not cutting the grass, chastised for not filling in the pothole. The whole structure of why we changed it at that point in time was to put the power into the city council's hands as to how to do it. And it evolved from there. And I mean, we all know the personalities from 2017 on as to who nudged and who pushed and everything else. It's your turn now. There's nothing wrong with helping any of them. The challenge we have right now, and I think this is probably some of your guys' frustration as well too, we're dealing with everything on a one-off basis at a time. Everybody's coming in one at a time. Rather than to fix the entire system, we have one group coming in. Well, can I get some help? We have another group coming in. Can I get some help? The thing is that it was being done behind your backs as a city council before that. And it was working fine, other than we weren't getting the work done as well too. So we changed that model in order to put it back into your hands to try to determine how to do that. And I'll leave it at that, because that's how it evolved from that level. But when I'm finding that we were cutting checks to people and everything to pay for the services that they were doing, it's like, we can't do that. Finances come through the city council, and that's where this whole model started to shift. And so I don't know what the right answer is on any of this. We can do whatever you would like to do. I know General Services is going through a lot of that information as well. I just wanted to make sure you had the rest of the history as to how we got here, because essentially what we do is that if we either back it all the way up and we just go right back where we're going, and I'll guarantee you that won't work, or we unwind it bit by bit to pull it back where we are still providing those special services where we need to provide them, and we're still protecting the things going forward. It doesn't matter how we eat it. I mean, the only problem is we don't generate a lot of new extra money. GRT is about it. And as long as the economy kind of keeps going the way it is, we'll have extra money, but it gets ate up a lot with the operational costs. And so we don't ever have that extra pocket. So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the time for you and the city council. We're a little over 2 hours, so I think we hit our mark. And, but please take this information, please talk about it, please consider it. And let's figure out what that model has to look like as we move forward. It worked before. We survived every day in 2016, 2014, 2012. Couldn't get everything done back then either. We're doing things a little bit differently now, but we're still not getting everything done. So the only thing that's changed is how we're debating and how we're discussing. I'll leave you at that. I'll shut it.
And one thing, Parker, thank you for your services to the city. And I know it's been probably a little different sometimes, but thank you very much. Good luck. Be sure you get the code. When you stay in Juneau, it's not so bad. The water keeps it warm. But you leave that town, you're going to need a heavy coat. They got them on sale, plan 10. Right now, so you can get them. One's on sale. Great. If they can get 50 below, they're pretty easy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything anybody else have to do? Okay, then, now, Mike, can you just get your cell phone so we can call you guys when to take the water keys?
They're giving them the mayor's number.
You have my number, Mayor. Well, I got everybody real quick. We do have a big storm coming in or headed this direction. So We're on standby. We'll be watching it tonight. If we get a lot of rain up north, we'll get the pump back out of Hollywood.
That's not on the agenda.
It's informational.
Please note in the minutes that Mike had bad information. I've
Yeah.
done that to you tonight.
Yeah, there's more coming, I guarantee already.
Yeah.
Season pieces to form. Cannot, seems a good blessing for us to have a wonderful job. Okay, well, anything else? Anybody? Was anybody in the public on there wants to holler? Anybody in the public?
Nobody's microphone on.
Okay, Rita, we missed you. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming.
Bye.